I would like to congratulate my honourable friend, the member for Poplar and Limehouse, and I also would like to thank my right honourable friend, the member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale, who chairs the all-party group that I'm also a member of, which you referred to on their radiography. I don't want to repeat the arguments that have just been made, but there are some key threads that run through the whole of this debate. And although the title of the debate is Early Diagnosis and the Cancer Workforce in relation to the long-term plan, I think we have to marry some concepts here. Yes, early diagnosis is important, but that has to be married with a skilled and effective workforce, and also the most effective treatment available. And I don't just mean available in our capital city, I mean across the whole of the country. So I want to kind of touch on that issue as well. I also have to declare an interest, Mr. Howarth. I'm a cancer survivor. I was successfully treated with both chemotherapy and radiotherapy thanks to a relatively early diagnosis. I'm vice chair of the all-party group on radiotherapy, but I'm not alone in having benefited from radiotherapy, as was mentioned earlier. During the course of our lifetimes, almost half of us will suffer from cancer at least once, and of those, about half will actually receive radiotherapy. I'm really concerned because, although I was very fortunate, and I count my lucky stars, I'm acutely aware that there are particular cancers, notably prostate cancer, notably pancreatic cancer, and a terrible story yesterday from the honourable member for Crawley of his caseworker who passed away as a consequence of pancreatic cancer, but also lung cancers and indeed breast cancer. For a modern industrial nation, our cancer outcomes are poor. They should be far better. So I hope that the 10-year forward plan that was published yesterday is an opportunity to address some of these really fundamental problems. And I do think it's really important we invest in modern, accessible cancer diagnosis and treatments. And I do want to refer to the long-term plan that the Prime Minister announced yesterday and on which we had a statement in the House of Commons. I particularly want to refer to Chapter 3 and 3.62 in particular on treatment and radiotherapy. I must confess, I was quite optimistic having met with the Minister, who I've known for some years, and I think is a decent and honourable individual, and who was very positive in the meetings that we had, both he and his staff. And I was hoping, based on the evidence that was presented, we'd have a much more positive outcome from the 10-year plan. The government have promised to complete the £130 million investment in radiotherapy machines and to commission the proton machines. That's the 2 proton beam machines, one in Manchester at Christie Hospital and one in London at University College Hospital. But in all honesty, that isn't a new commitment. These machines are either already completed or almost completed. So it's kind of a recycling of an existing announcement. And what we actually need, Mr. Howarth, if we are going to have a step change, and if we are going to have a real world-class set of outcomes and a world-class cancer treatment service, we do need a modest increase, and it is a modest increase in relative terms, in advanced radiotherapy. And what we're asking for, and it's set out in the manifesto for radiotherapy, and I would recommend all members have a read of it, because if they're not affected themselves, certainly many of their constituents will be. And we're asking for an initial one-off investment of £250 million, and then an additional £100 million in each successive year, and part of that would go into workforce and running costs and so on. So I do think that even though in 50% of cancer cases radiotherapy is required, access is very patchy, and it varies from 25% to 49%. And the Right Honourable Member for Westmoreland and Lonsdale indicated, representing a rural area, the figures are really quite low. The average is about 38%. Ideally, according to Cancer Research UK, patients shouldn't have to travel more than 45 minutes to access this form of treatment. And if we are going to achieve that 45-minute access, it's going to require considerable investment. I don't think there's anything in the plan that's concrete, the Minister may be able to elaborate on it, that's going to address this very serious issue. Early diagnosis, I welcome the government's commitment there. It says they're going to increase the number of patients diagnosed with stage 1 and stage 2 cancer. They're going to increase the diagnosis by 25%. And in terms of lung cancer, they want to increase the diagnosis of stage 1 patients by 47%. But in practical terms, the government will need more advanced radiotherapy machines to ensure they can cure many of these stage 1 tumours. They will need additional radiotherapy machines to treat the stage 2 patients. So the government will need to rapidly expand the advanced radiotherapy facilities around the country. And the way to do that is set out in the manifesto, and that would achieve not just early diagnosis, but improved survival and outcomes. I'm very pleased. I want to give the Minister credit. He's looking a bit quizzically. I hadn't intended to beat him up. But we are trying to be helpful. I think the aspiration and the wish to improve cancer outcomes and see a first-class service is shared around the House. And I was very pleased that he's recognised the representations that were made in relation to hypofractionated treatments. And there was a perverse incentive. This is in relation to the tariff. So the government have said they're going to address that issue. I'd like some assurance that it will be addressed very quickly and not in 10 years' time, because the evidence is clear that it is working as a perverse incentive to or disincentive for the most appropriate form of treatment. I want to wind up, Mr. Howarth, because I know many people want to speak in this debate. But I am pleased the government have admitted and accept that advanced radiotherapy is effective and has fewer side effects. I do want to see a specification that comes out, and I do want to ensure that when it does come out, we won't see what effectively we have at the moment, which is the rationing of effective treatments. Specialists in the field have told me that the specification that's being discussed at the moment is essentially no different to the specification that was available a year ago. So I want to press the Minister to make a response to the submissions that we've made. I want to see an increase, a fairly modest increase in terms of the NHS budget and indeed the cancer budget, from the current 5% to 6.5% of spend on advanced radiotherapy. And I do think it would enable large numbers of cancer patients to live longer and more fulfilling lives and achieve better outcomes and achieve positive economic benefits. I commend it to the Minister, and I urge him to look at it as part of the ongoing cancer strategy and the NHS 10-year plan.